The Frogs Who Asked for a King. There were once some frogs who lived together in perfect safety in a beautiful lake. They were a large company and were very comfortable, but they came to think that they might be still happier if they had a king to rule over them. So they went to their god Jupiter to ask him to give them a king. Jupiter laughed at their folly, for he knew that they were better off as they were. But he said to them,
"Well, here's a king for you."
And into the water he threw a big log. The big log fell with such a splash that the frogs were terrified and hid themselves in the deep mud under the water. One day, a frog braver than the rest peeped out to look at the so-called king and saw the log as it lay quietly on top of the water. Soon, one after another, they all came out of their hiding places and ventured to look at their new king. As the log did not move, they swam around it, keeping a safe distance away, and at last, one by one, they all hopped onto the log.
"This is not a king,"
said a wise old frog.
"It is nothing but a stupid log. If we had a king, Jupiter would pay more attention to us."
So once more, they went to Jupiter and begged him to give them a proper king who could rule over them. Jupiter did not like to be disturbed again by these silly frogs, and this time he sent them a tall bird, saying,
"You will have someone to rule over you now."
As the frogs saw the tall bird solemnly walking down to the lake, they were all delighted. "Ah," they said, "see how grand he looks, how he strides along, how he throws back his head. This is a king indeed. He shall rule over us." And they went joyfully to meet their new king. As their new king came nearer, he paused, stretched out his long neck, picked up the head frog, and swallowed him in one mouthful. And then the next, and the next. "What is this?" cried the frogs, as they began to draw back in terror. But the tall bird, with his long legs, easily followed them to the water, and kept on eating them as fast as he could.
"Oh, if we had only been,"
said the oldest frog. He was going to say content, but was eaten up before he could even finish that sentence. The remaining frogs cried to Jupiter to help them, but Jupiter would not listen, and the tall bird king ate the frogs for breakfast, dinner, and supper every day until in a short time there was not a single frog left in the lake. Poor, foolish frogs, they really should have known that they were already well off.